One thing that I've always loved about beat-em-ups is how you can pretty much set them in any time period and they'd still make sense. I don't care if it's the fantasy medieval times, or a western setting, or even the far-flung future, because people are still going to be using their fists to pummel bad guys. That brings me to Buccaneers Shipshape, a new swashbuckling brawler that takes the genre back to a time when pirates ruled the seven seas, doing whatever it took to unearth that buried treasure. That's a great setup, but does this pirate-themed beat-em-up deliver on the promise? Find out now when I review Buccaneers Shipshape from Merso X Games. Before we get into the new game, we first need to talk about the 1989 bootleg game Buccaneers. Developed by Dointronic, this side-scrolling beat-em-up was actually an extensive hack of Irem's 1988 game Vigilante. The original plan was to port it to Amiga and Amstrad CPC, but those releases were ultimately cancelled, dooming this pirate-themed brawler to be little more than a footnote in history. But not so fast, you scurvy dogs, because Buccaneers Shipshape is a loving reinterpretation of the game created with the full support of the original developers. It trades the vigilante-style side-scrolling action for more traditional fare, which will immediately remind you of beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage and Final Fight. This, along with a deeper story and more variety to the stages, elevates this remake over the original in practically every way possible. The setup's simple enough. Your treasure map has been stolen by the evil Captain Winters, so the four Buccaneers set out on a 9-stage adventure to get their revenge, and also find the missing booty. You take control of Simon, Coralie, Portia, and the hook-handed Aldemar, who spends pretty much the whole game beating up bad guys with a cigarette in his mouth. Beyond having differently colored parrots at the ready, each of these pirates have their own unique special moves. For example, Portia will spin around a few times, slicing pretty much anything in her path, while Coralie will throw a bunch of small knives in one direction. As it turns out, the story isn't the only thing that they beefed up with this remake, because a lot of the locations found in the original arcade game have been fleshed out and expanded in a lot of fun ways. A good example of that is the very first stage, where we're fighting through the docks, dodging barrels, and even stealing rich people's money. In the original game, the massive pirate ship sat in the background. I mean, it certainly looked menacing, but it was ultimately just for show. In this new game, however, the ship will actually shoot cannonballs at you, forcing you to dodge those while fighting off hordes of pirates and other rapscallions. This new remake doesn't just expand on the original levels, it also adds a number of new ones. There's a whole castle subplot that simply wasn't in the original game, as well as a fun underwater bit where you're fighting off sharks and mermen. One of my favorite new stages is one set on the rooftops. This is a nighttime battle that's set in the middle of a rainstorm, but that's not what's cool about this stage. You see, because of the angle and everything being so slippery, everybody, including the enemies, are constantly sliding off the narrow roofs. It's not only hilarious, but it's something that you just don't see in a lot of brawlers. There are also a couple of 3D sections added to the mix, including an especially exciting one that's set on the top of a moving stagecoach. Not only are the enemies constantly jumping onto the vehicle, but those annoyed people below, actually riding the stagecoach, keep sticking their swords through the roof. This is the kind of thing that the original arcade game could only dream about, and I think these 3D sections add some much needed variety to the action. Speaking of which, the original arcade game that we've spent so much time talking about is actually an extra in this package. Yeah, they've tweaked it a little bit, but all 10 minutes of it is here, showing you just how big of a leap forward this remake is. I will admit that I had a hard time going back to this 1989 version, as it's loaded with questionable gameplay decisions. For one thing, the enemies take far too many hits to defeat, and sometimes it's hard to even know if you're hitting them. Look, I love that they included this as an extra, but I'm not sure how many times I'm really going to go back to the original Buccaneers. I have to admit, the developers have done a really great job of turning this into a more traditional beat-em-up. The characters are fast, they're responsive, and they're fun to control, and I like how powerful you feel throughout the game. No matter which character you choose, you can easily take on the hordes of enemies, both with your own moves and with the guns and whips and other weapons you pick up along the way. And that's just as a solo player. I can only imagine the level of chaos that would rain down if I had all 4 of the heroes on the screen at the same time. That said, I did find the game to be a little bit too easy and forgiving. I played through the entire story the first time through and didn't need to use even one of the 2 continues that I was given. In fact, I barely lost a life in the first half of the game. Now, things do pick up in the second half, but I found myself breezing through it. The good news is that they just added a hard mode, but I have a hunch that it's only going to slow down players instead of giving them a true challenge. I also have to reiterate that while this is a very good throwback beat-em-up, it's still a game that has all the annoying trappings found in the genre. It's repetitive, it's short, it's shallow, and there are far too many times when the enemies will just wander off screen. Are these issues exclusive to Buccaneers Shipshape? Of course not. But for all the praise this game deserves, never lose sight of the fact that it's not trying to be a modern brawler. Everything from the graphics, to the sound, to the music feel like it came straight out of an early 90s beat-em-up. And that's something that I actually really liked about this game. This is a game that knows the look and style that it's going for, and it nails pretty much every part of it. The 4 heroes have their own personalities, the bosses are all unique, and the levels take full advantage of the pirate theme. I also really like the humorous ending. This is one of those games that isn't afraid to go over the top and be a little silly, and it really is all the better for it. Look, there's nothing especially revolutionary here. As a remake, it expands on the basic concept in every conceivable way, adding more depth, story, characters, and moves. The result is a throwback brawler that pretty much anybody can get into, even if they've never even heard of the 1989 original. It may not be especially original or unique, but this throwback beat-em-up certainly looks and plays the part, giving us a thrilling, action-packed experience at a relatively low price point. I guess what I'm saying is that fans of brawlers could do a whole lot worse than Buccaneers Shipshape. It's time to hit the high seas and punch a merman straight in the face in Buccaneers Shipshape, a loving reimagining of a long-forgotten arcade game from 1989. Presented in the style of a 16-bit brawler, this pirate-themed action game sends 4 heroes on a revenge mission, dodging sharks, cannonballs, exploding barrels, and untreatable diseases. This is one of those fun and engaging brawlers that is not only easy to get into, but actually a blast to play. There's just enough depth to the combat to keep things lively, and the different locations are straight out of the original game. It may not be as valuable, but personally, I'd rather spend 40 minutes playing Buccaneers Shipshape than digging for buried treasure. Hey, thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What time period deserves its own beat-em-up? With so many to choose from, I can't wait to see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're going to be back shortly with a review of both 9 Years of Shadows and Fallen City Brawl. While you wait for those, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.